The sky over the city of Dallin turned dark at noon. People first thought a storm was coming, but soon the truth became clear. Shadows moved across the clouds, larger than any plane or balloon that humans had ever seen. From the ground, thousands of eyes looked up as enormous shapes pushed through the atmosphere. They were ships, but not like anything built on Earth. Their surfaces were smooth, dark, and alive with blue lines that glowed as if the ships themselves were breathing. The air trembled with a low hum that made windows shake and animals run for shelter. In one corner of the city, a young researcher named Ryan stood on the roof of a university building. His notebooks and instruments lay forgotten at his feet. He had studied the stars for many years, but nothing prepared him for this. His hands shook as he raised a small telescope. Through the lens he saw one of the ships tilt slightly, almost as though it was struggling against Earth's air. Ryan's sharp eyes caught details that others missed. The ship was powerful, yes, but it did not look comfortable in the sky above Dallin. Across the ocean, in a quiet farming village, a teacher named Amira guided her students out of the schoolhouse. The children held hands, staring at the giant shadows stretching across the fields. Amira felt their fear pressing on her heart, yet she kept her voice steady. "Do not be afraid," she said softly, though she herself was afraid. "Look carefully. These are strangers. Strangers can be powerful, but they do not know us. We must watch them and remember who we are." The children clung to her words, whispering them to each other as if they were shields. As the hours passed, the strange ships spread across the world. They hovered above great cities, over deserts, over oceans. Every nation on Earth watched in silence, unsure what would come next. The governments gathered in secret rooms. Some leaders spoke of fighting, but most lowered their heads, believing no human weapon could stand against such power. News channels showed the same pictures again and again, black ships that blotted out the sun, glowing lines that pulsed like veins, and no sign of weakness. The people whispered that the end had come. But Ryan did not see an end. He saw a question. He remembered the way the ship had tilted, the way it seemed too heavy for the sky. He scribbled notes quickly, marking details of the movement and the hum of the engines. Something about the ships felt wrong. Something about them felt almost fragile. At that same hour, Amira gathered her students in a circle beneath the wide tree near the school. She told them stories of rivers that cut through mountains, of trees that bent in storms but did not break, of fire that rose again from ashes. The children listened, their fear softening. Her words reminded them that humans had faced hardships before and had always endured. Then, at last, the invaders spoke. A great flash appeared in the sky, followed by a voice that thundered in every city and village. The voice was not human. It was deep, sharp, and full of pride. "We are the Vorin," the voice said. "This world is ours now. You will serve us, and you will live only by our command. Resist, and you will be broken." The words shook hearts around the world. Crowds fell to their knees in fear. Some leaders hurried to prepare messages of surrender. Yet among the fearful, there were a few who stood still, listening more carefully than the rest. Ryan was one of them. He noticed how the voice cracked slightly, as though strained by Earth's air. It was strong, yes, but not natural. Amira was another. She saw how the children straightened their backs when the voice spoke, then looked at her, waiting to see if she would bow her head. She did not. She raised her chin high, her eyes steady on the sky. That night, fires burned in the distance where some Vorin ships had landed. Columns of silver light fell from their bellies, carrying tall figures wrapped in shining armor. The first soldiers of the Vorin stepped onto Earth's soil. Their helmets glowed, their weapons flashed, and their voices barked commands in a language no human could understand. But something subtle happened. Their steps were heavy. Their movements were slower than expected. Where they walked, the ground seemed to resist them. The air made them stumble, though they tried to hide it? Ryan watched from the university tower and wrote in his notes, "They are strong, but not invincible. The earth itself pushes against them." Amira, standing with her students, whispered quietly, "They do not belong here. This is our home, and we will not forget it." The first day of the Voron arrival ended not with fire and destruction, but with silence and uncertainty. The invaders had declared conquest, but beneath their power, careful eyes saw something else. A crack. A weakness. And though fear still filled the hearts of many, a spark of courage began to glow in the hearts of a few. Morning came heavy with silence. Across the world, the strange black ships hovered above cities like dark mountains. People walked in the streets, glancing up again and again as if the sky itself had turned into a cage. Radios repeated the same message: the Voron claimed Earth as their own. In the city of Dallin, Ryan walked quickly toward the university's observatory. His notes from the night before filled his satchel, each page covered in careful lines and sketches of the alien ships. His colleagues waited for him inside. Some were pale with fear, others restless with curiosity. "They are too strong," said one professor. "We cannot fight them." "They will crush us like they crushed other worlds," muttered another. But Ryan raised his notes. "No," he said firmly. "I watched them. Their ships moved strangely. Their soldiers walked heavily. I think Earth is not friendly to them. We must study this. We must learn." His words lit a spark in the room. For the first time since the arrival, his colleagues felt a hint of hope. They agreed to gather data, measure air pressure, soil and metal samples, and watch closely how the Voron behaved. Far away in her small farming village, Amira faced her own challenge. That morning, a Voron ship had descended into the nearby fields. It opened with a hiss, and a squad of tall armored soldiers marched out. Their armor gleamed with silver light, and their weapons pulsed with an energy no one could understand. The villagers gasped and backed away, but Amira stood still, her hands resting gently on the shoulders of two children beside her. The commander of the squad raised his voice. His words were translated through a device on his chest, turning strange alien sounds into broken human language. "You will bring food," the machine demanded. "You will obey. This land is ours now." The villagers trembled. Some dropped to their knees. But Amira, though her heart pounded, stepped forward. Her voice was calm. "This land feeds our children," she said. "We cannot give it all away. You will not understand us if you take what we need to live." The soldiers tilted their heads, confused. They had expected fear, not reason. The commander barked something in his own tongue, and the device repeated, "Refusal is not allowed." Yet even as he spoke, his stance seemed stiff, his breathing slow. The children whispered to each other, noticing how the giant moved as if the very air was heavy on his body. Amira's words spread quickly among the villagers. They whispered courage to one another. They did not fight, but they did not bow. They decided to give only small baskets of grain, enough to keep peace for the moment but not enough to weaken themselves. It was a quiet resistance, but it was a beginning. Back in Dallin, the Voron commander Zeker stood before a great crowd. His tall frame glowed with light from his armor, and his voice echoed through loudspeakers as he addressed the city. "We are the Voron," he declared. "We bring order to your world. You are weak, but you may serve us. Resist, and you will know ruin. Submit, and you may continue to live." The crowd listened in fear. Some leaders of the city bowed their heads, promising to follow his command. Yet in the back of the crowd, Ryan listened carefully. He noticed how the commander's voice cracked again, just as before. He noticed how the armor's glow flickered faintly when the wind grew stronger. "Not invincible," Ryan whispered to himself. "Not here." That night, Ryan met secretly with a small group of students and researchers. He shared his notes, pointing out the weaknesses he had observed. The air is different for them. The soil reacts with their machines. If we understand this, we may find a way to endure. Meanwhile, Amira met with the village elders. They spoke in hushed voices under the stars. The elders feared angering the Vorin, but Amira reminded them of the children who needed courage. If we live in fear, we are already defeated. But if we stand together, they will not break us. The elders agreed. The village would resist quietly, by refusing to give more than they must, by hiding food supplies, and by teaching the young ones not to bow their heads. Across Earth, similar acts began to bloom. Some were small villagers keeping grain, workers slowing their tasks, children refusing to run from the soldiers. Others were larger scientists like Ryan studying the invaders, communities sharing information across secret radios. Humanity's answer was not open battle, but patience, unity, and observation. Zeker grew restless. Reports reached him that humans were not obeying as quickly as expected. Soldiers complained of heavy air, of strange sickness in their skin, of machines that needed constant repair. Zeker dismissed their words with anger. These humans are weak. They will break soon. They always do. But in the quiet corners of Earth, humans began to believe something new. The Vorin were not gods. They were not untouchable. They were powerful, but they were strangers on a world that pushed against them. For the first time since the ships darkened the skies, a small flame of hope flickered in human hearts. The first contact between the Vorin and Earth was not marked by war, but by quiet defiance. And though fear still walked every street, the seeds of resistance had been planted. Weeks passed since the first landing of the Vorin. Their dark ships still floated above cities, their soldiers still marched across fields, but something was changing. The fear that had frozen humanity on the first day began to melt. Small acts of defiance grew into quiet patterns of resistance, and the cracks in the Empire's power slowly appeared. In the city of Dallin, Ryan spent long nights in the observatory. He and his group of researchers collected data from every sighting of the Vorin. They measured the strange glow of their armor, the way their weapons flickered in rain, and the slower pace of their patrols after heavy storms. Ryan filled page after page with careful notes. One evening, as he adjusted his telescope toward the sky, he noticed a thin trail of smoke behind one of the ships. The smoke was faint, almost hidden by clouds, but it told him something important. The mighty ships were not flawless. They were machines, and machines could break. Ryan turned to his colleagues. Their empire is powerful, but it is not endless. Earth itself weakens them. We must spread this knowledge. The group agreed. They began to send secret messages through old radio channels. Farmers, teachers, workers, and scientists across the country received short signals that carried hope. They are not invincible. Endure. Meanwhile, in her farming village, Amira watched the invaders closely. The squad of Vorin soldiers continued to demand food, but their presence had changed. Their armor no longer shone as brightly, their steps seemed heavier, and strange dark marks appeared on their skin. Some of the younger soldiers coughed when the winds carried dust from the fields. The villagers whispered to Amira, asking what it meant. She spoke calmly, the earth itself does not welcome them. They may have conquered other places, but here the air, the soil, the water all stand against them. Encouraged by her words, the villagers grew bolder. They hid supplies under barns, refused to bow during patrols, and continued their daily lives as if the invaders were only shadows. Children sang songs Amira taught them, songs of rivers and mountains that would not bend. Their voices reached the ears of the soldiers, who shifted uncomfortably, unable to silence what was not a weapon but still felt powerful. In his command chamber, Zeker read report after report of these small acts. His soldiers complained of exhaustion, of strange sickness, of machines that required endless repairs. The commander slammed his fist against the metal table. "Excuses," he shouted. "The humans are weak. They are only dust compared to us. You must control them. But deep in his mind, a sliver of doubt crept in. The Vorin had conquered many worlds, yet never had they faced resistance like this, resistance without armies or weapons, only stubborn unity. In Dallin, Ryan began working with other groups of thinkers. Together, they tested how Earth's minerals reacted with Vorin technology. They discovered that certain stones from the mountains corroded the metal of alien tools. Even simple salt water made the armor lose its glow. Ryan's heart raced with every discovery. "This is our chance," he said. "We do not need weapons greater than theirs. We only need to use what Earth already gives us." The knowledge spread quietly, carried by secret messengers and hidden notes. Farmers learned to sprinkle salt water near patrol routes. Fishermen spread news that the sea itself was a weapon. Children passed stones to one another as symbols of courage. Amira also received whispers of these discoveries. She smiled as she taught her students, reminding them that the world they loved was not weak. "Do you see the river?" she asked them one morning. "It cuts stone over years. We are like the river. We may look small, but we endure, and endurance is stronger than force." The children carried her words home, and soon the whole village repeated them. They lived each day without surrender, showing the invaders that fear no longer ruled them. Zeker grew restless. He ordered stricter patrols and demanded that the humans give more food and resources. Yet each demand brought fewer results. Villages gave only what they wished, cities stalled in their tasks, and whispers of defiance spread faster than his soldiers could crush them. At night, when he looked upon the reports, Zeker felt the weight of something he had never faced before, a people who refused to kneel, not with weapons, but with spirit. The Empire's strength was built on fear, but fear was slipping away. In the quiet halls of the observatory, Ryan wrote his final note of the day: "They are not gods. They bleed, they tire, they weaken. Humanity must only endure." And in her village, Amira sat beneath the wide tree with her students, their songs rising into the night. Their voices carried through the fields, soft yet unbroken, reaching even the ears of the Vorin soldiers standing guard. The soldiers shifted uneasily, for in the children's songs they heard something they could not command: hope. The cracks in the Empire were small, almost invisible to those who did not look closely. But they were there, and they were growing. The Vorin had expected Earth to bend quickly. On every world before, their voice alone was enough to bring silence. Yet on Earth, silence did not last. People were afraid, but they did not give up. In towns, villages, and cities, quiet defiance spread like fire hidden under the ground. In Dallin, Ryan sat with a group of scientists, farmers, and workers in the dim light of the observatory. On the table lay jars of soil, stones from the mountains, and vials of seawater. Each item had been tested against pieces of broken alien equipment that humans had secretly collected. The results were clear. "The Earth itself pushes against them," Ryan said firmly. "Salt water corrodes their armor. Dust weakens their breathing. Even our storms shake their ships. We do not need to fight as they expect. We only need to use what we already have." The people in the room nodded. None of them were soldiers, yet each felt a rising strength. They could see that resistance did not always mean weapons. Sometimes it meant patience, unity, and trust in the land beneath their feet. Far away in her farming village, Amira led her people in their own answer. Each time the Vorin demanded food, the villagers offered only what they chose, never more. They stored grain in hidden cellars, planted crops openly before alien patrols, and sang songs while they worked. The songs spread across the fields, reaching even the ears of the invaders. When the soldiers marched past, the villagers did not bow. They continued their tasks, showing that life would not stop for fear. Children skipped stones in the river while the towering armored figures looked on. The soldiers, though taller and armed with strange weapons, seemed smaller against the calm strength of the villagers. Amira told her students, the strongest shield is not made of iron. It is made of courage. The children repeated her words in their games, turning them into chants. Soon the chants became known throughout nearby villages, passed from one group of children to another until they reached places Amira herself had never seen. Zeker, the commander of the Vorin, grew frustrated. His soldiers returned with less food each week. His patrols were met not with rebellion but with a stubborn refusal to kneel. Machines broke more often, their glowing armor dulled by Earth's weather. He ordered his officers to strike fear harder, but fear no longer spread as it once did. One evening, a storm rolled over the city of Dallin. Lightning tore across the sky, and heavy rain pounded the ground. The great ships above trembled in the thunder. People gathered at their windows and rooftops to watch. Instead of fear, many felt wonder. For the first time, they saw the mighty ships look uncertain, as if Earth's own storms were stronger than alien power. Ryan used that moment to send a message through hidden radios. His voice carried across villages and towns. Do not be afraid. Do not fight as they want. Live, endure, and the earth itself will fight beside us. The message spread quickly. Farmers told it to their neighbors. Fishermen carried it across rivers. Teachers whispered it to students. In every place, people found courage in simple acts: planting crops, hiding food, refusing to bow, singing songs, and protecting one another. In Amira's village, the Vorin commander of the patrol tried to stop the singing. He shouted orders, but the villagers only sang louder. The children's voices rose higher than the metallic echo of his command device. The soldiers shifted uncomfortably, for they could not silence the spirit behind the songs. Amira stood at the front, her voice steady. You may walk our fields, but you will not own our hearts. The soldiers left without their usual demands, confused and unsettled. The villagers cheered quietly, not with shouts of war but with the joy of having held their ground. Across Earth, similar stories unfolded. Cities marched in peace through streets even as alien patrols watched. Workers slowed their hands, refusing to build for their conquerors. Families told stories of courage around fires, passing strength from one generation to the next. Zeker looked at his reports with growing unease. He had expected battles and quick victory, but instead he faced something new. The humans did not rise in armies. They did not crumble in fear. They simply endured, day after day, using the land, the weather, and their own spirit as weapons no empire could control. In the observatory, Ryan wrote his thoughts. Our answer is not fire or steel. Our answer is to remain unbroken. They cannot rule a people who refuse to kneel. And in her village, Amira stood beneath the wide tree, watching the children laugh even as the shadow of a Vorin ship passed above. Her heart was steady. She knew the truth now. Humanity's greatest power was not in its machines but in its spirit, carried by every child, every worker, every teacher, every farmer. The human answer had been given. It was not surrender. It was not war. It was endurance. And the empire had no answer for that. The rains came harder than anyone could remember. For days, storms crossed the land, filling rivers and shaking mountains. The people of Earth sheltered in their homes, listening to thunder that rolled like drums of the sky. Yet above, the mighty ships of the Vorin struggled. Their smooth black bodies, once glowing with strength, now flickered under the constant weight of rain. In the city of Dallin, crowds gathered on rooftops to watch. At first, they held their breath, expecting the ships to endure as always. But then something unexpected happened. A large ship tilted sharply, its engines whining, before it corrected itself with great effort. The people gasped. For the first time, they saw fear in the invincible. Ryan stood in the observatory, recording every moment. He pointed to the screen that showed the trembling ships. Do you see, he said to his colleagues. Even the sky resists them. They cannot master the storms. He shared his findings through hidden channels. Messages carried across towns and villages, the ships are weak in storms. Hope grew stronger, moving faster than the thunder itself. In her farming village, Amira watched as soldiers tried to march through the rain. Their armor sparked under the downpour, their glowing helmets dimmed, and their steps grew slower. Children followed them at a distance, laughing softly at how clumsy the tall figures appeared. The soldiers barked commands, but their voices cracked, swallowed by the roar of rain. Amira gathered the villagers under the wide tree once the storm eased. "You see now," she said, her voice steady. "The earth itself pushes them back. They may have power, but this land is not theirs. Our rivers, our storms, even the air, they all fight for us." The villagers nodded with shining eyes. Their fear had lessened, replaced by quiet courage. They began to act with greater boldness. Farmers poured salt water near the paths the soldiers used. Workers slowed their labor, making repairs for the invaders take longer. Children sang songs louder, their voices rising even as patrols passed. Meanwhile, Ryan and his fellow researchers began to design simple tools. They had no great weapons, but they had knowledge. They built pumps that sprayed seawater, knowing it corroded Voran armor. They tested sound waves that shook alien machines, disrupting their balance. Each tool was small, but together they formed a pattern of resistance that spread quickly among the people. In one coastal town, fishermen used saltwater sprayers to weaken the patrols. The soldiers retreated, confused and unsteady. In another village, workers filled the air with smoke from burning herbs that made the invaders cough and stumble. These were not acts of war in the way the Voran understood, yet they were powerful. Zeker received report after report of these disruptions. His face darkened as he read them. "They are not fighting us," he muttered, "yet they are winning." He ordered stronger measures, but each command only showed more weakness. Machines required endless repair. Soldiers complained of sickness. Even the morale of his forces began to fade. The true turning point came one night when another storm swept across Dallin. Lightning split the sky, striking close to one of the great ships. Sparks exploded, and the ship shuddered before falling lower, almost crashing into the ground. People flooded the streets, not with terror but with cheers. The sound of their voices echoed across the city, carrying a message that reached even the frightened children hiding in homes. Humanity had found its strength. Ryan watched the celebration from the observatory window. He turned to his colleagues and said, "We do not need to match their weapons. We only need to remain. They cannot survive here as we can. This is the answer." In her village, Amira led a peaceful march. The villagers walked through the fields, holding simple lanterns, their voices joined in song. The Voran soldiers tried to block them, but the people kept walking, calm and unafraid. The soldiers faltered, confused by resistance that did not use violence, resistance that could not be crushed by force. The march ended beneath the wide tree, where Amira raised her lantern high. "We are not theirs to command," she said. "We belong to this land, and it will protect us." The villagers lifted their lanterns in agreement, their light shining like stars fallen to earth. News of such acts spread across the world. In every place, humans discovered they were not powerless. Unity became their shield, and the earth itself became their ally. For Zeker, this was a new kind of war. He had weapons that could destroy buildings, but he did not know how to destroy courage. He could command soldiers, but he could not command storms. He could demand obedience, but he could not force the people to kneel. The turning point had come. The Empire had entered Earth with pride, but now it stumbled against a power it had never understood. The power of endurance. The power of unity. The power of a world that refused to bow. The Voran soldiers had begun to tire. Their great black ships, once silent and imposing in the skies, now creaked under storms and struggled to stay aloft. Each day, reports of minor failures reached Commander Zeker. Engines faltered, armor corroded, and even the soldiers themselves began to show weakness. In Dallin, Ryan and his team watched with careful eyes. Every mistake the Vorin made became data. Every stumble became hope. The storms, the rain, the strong winds all were allies now. Ryan's notes were full of numbers, diagrams, and observations. Each one showed the same truth: the invaders were not indestructible. "They are losing control," Ryan said quietly to his colleagues. "Every day, Earth fights for us, and we only need to endure." Meanwhile, in Amira's village, the people moved with a calm determination. The soldiers stationed there were slower, weaker, and less certain. Patrols that had once marched with pride now shifted unsteadily across the fields. The villagers refused to bow or show fear. They planted crops openly, repaired their homes, and sang their songs. The children's laughter filled the air, carrying courage that no weapon could break. Amira gathered everyone beneath the wide tree one evening. She held a small lantern high so all could see her face. "Do not fear them," she said firmly. "They may have conquered worlds before, but Earth is different. We have strength they cannot take from us. Stand together, and they will fail." The next day, reports came from villages and cities around the world. Vorin machinery failed more frequently, patrols stumbled in rivers and mud, and soldiers fell ill from Earth's air. Even their communication devices began to glitch under storms. Across the globe, the Empire's great network of control was weakening. Ryan and his team moved quickly. They had created simple tools to take advantage of these weaknesses. Saltwater sprays, smoke, and sound devices were sent to small groups around Dallin and other cities. Fishermen, farmers, and children became part of a quiet resistance, using Earth itself as a weapon. Every small act of endurance grew stronger as more people joined. Zeker felt his empire slipping. For the first time in his life, he doubted his victory. He called his officers together in the command chamber. "Why do they resist?" he demanded. "They have no weapons like ours. They cannot stand against us in battle. Yet they do not bend. Explain this to me." His officers looked down, unsure of what to say. One spoke carefully, "Commander, they do not fight as we expect. They endure. They protect their land and their lives. The storms, the rivers, the soil all resist with them." Zeker slammed his fist against the table. "Impossible. They are weak. They must break. If they do not, our empire will lose its pride." In the streets of Dallin, Ryan led a group of volunteers to watch a Vorin landing zone. Machines struggled in mud, soldiers slipped and groaned under the weight of armor. They had no plan to attack. They only documented and helped villagers avoid unnecessary harm. Yet even this small effort spread courage throughout the city. People saw the invaders faltering and felt their own power grow. In the villages, Amira watched the soldiers retreat from farms after failing to gather enough food. The villagers laughed softly, celebrating in a quiet way. Their joy was not in destruction, but in survival. The children's songs grew louder, echoing across fields and forests. The sound of life was louder than the sound of fear. That night, lightning struck close to a Vorin ship hovering near the coast. Sparks flew, and the massive structure shuddered. Soldiers scrambled to stabilize it, their armor cracked, their movements frantic. People on the shore cheered quietly, witnessing the great empire's power shaken by Earth itself. Ryan spoke to his team over radios, his voice steady. "We are not winning with swords. We are winning by staying human. They cannot conquer a world that refuses to bend. The collapse has begun." Amira's village held a ceremony under the wide tree. Every villager lit a lantern. The children sang the songs of courage they had learned. Even the soldiers who watched could not suppress their confusion. The people were united, alive, and fearless. Across Earth, Similar scenes unfolded. Cities, villages, and farms all contributed to the quiet collapse of the empire. The Vorin could not control the land, the weather, or the spirit of humans. Every act of endurance made the empire weaker. Zeker looked at his fleet from above. Ships were falling, patrols failing, and soldiers begging for rest. His pride was shattered. He realized that the humans had defeated his empire not with weapons, but with unity, patience, and the power of their world. The collapse had begun. The invaders had entered Earth expecting conquest, but they had entered a resistance they could not understand. They had entered a planet that would not be ruled by fear. Humanity endured. Earth itself fought alongside them. And the great empire began to crumble from within. The sky was alive with movement. Across the horizon, Vorin ships tilted and fell from above, their glowing lines flickering and dimming. For weeks, the invaders had struggled against storms, rivers, and the quiet resistance of humans. Now their empire was unraveling before the eyes of the world. In Dallin, Ryan stood on the university roof, binoculars in hand. He watched a great ship crash into the ocean, sending waves splashing toward the city. The people gathered below, cheering not with violence but with relief. Each fall of the alien vessels was proof that Earth's strength and humanity's unity were greater than any conqueror's pride. Ryan turned to his colleagues. "This is what I hoped we would see," he said. "The Vorin are leaving. Their empire ends here, not with fire, but with endurance." Across the land, Amira led her village to the riverbank. Lanterns floated on the water, carrying the faces of children who had never bowed to fear. "Look at what we have done," she said softly. "We did not fight with weapons. We fought with courage. We kept our hearts unbroken." The Vorin commander Zeker stood on the deck of his last remaining ship, looking down at the world he had hoped to conquer. The cities, fields, and rivers were still alive. Humans moved freely, singing, working, and protecting one another. The ships behind him were falling one by one, and his soldiers whispered their fear. "This cannot be," Zeker said aloud, though no one could hear him. "We are the Vorin. We are invincible. And yet they endure. They are not broken. They do not obey." His pride, which had once been the strength of his empire, was now his greatest weakness. The soldiers who remained had no courage left, and their machines could not withstand the storms and sabotage caused by humans. One by one, Zeker gave the order to retreat. The empire that had crushed countless worlds was fleeing a single planet. In the villages, cities, and mountains, people watched the Vorin ships disappear into the sky. Children danced in the fields, farmers returned to their crops, and families embraced. The sound of life filled the air. Earth itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, as though the land had taken part in the victory. Ryan recorded the moment in his notebook. "They came to conquer Earth," he wrote, "but Earth did not allow it. We endured, and in our endurance, we ended their era. This is proof of the strength of humanity and the world we protect." Amira looked at the children under the wide tree in her village. She spoke to them gently, "Remember this day. Remember that fear cannot rule you. Remember that life, courage, and unity are stronger than any army. Today, the invaders leave, but our story continues." As night fell, cities lit their lamps, villages lit their fires, and the people celebrated quietly. They did not destroy what remained of the Vorin ships. They did not attack the retreating soldiers. Humanity had shown power not through vengeance, but through survival, courage, and care for their world. Ryan and Amira, though far apart, shared the same feeling. The invaders had come expecting fear and surrender. They had found neither. Instead, they found humans who would not kneel, villages that would not yield, and a planet that would not bend. Across the globe, scientists, teachers, workers, and children joined in a new understanding. They saw that the strength of Earth and humanity was not in weapons, wealth, or armies. It was in endurance, in courage, in unity, and in respect for the land that gave them life. Zeeker's fleet finally disappeared beyond the clouds. The remaining soldiers, humbled and weary, left behind their machines. Their empire, once proud and feared across galaxies, had ended quietly on Earth. The humans had not needed to fire a single missile or strike a single blow. They had simply endured, and their unity had become unstoppable. Amira closed her eyes beneath the wide tree, feeling the soft wind on her face. She knew that life would return to normal, yet it would never be the same. Humanity had discovered its greatest power, and Earth had shown itself as the ultimate protector. Ryan looked out over the city of Dallin as dawn rose. He saw children running, people rebuilding, and streets filled with life. A new era had begun. One where humans knew their strength, where courage had triumphed, and where the legacy of endurance would be remembered for generations. The invaders had come to conquer Earth. They had thought victory was simple. Instead, they had brought their own empire to an end. And humanity had shown the galaxy that even the smallest, simplest people could achieve greatness when they refused to bow. Earth was safe. Humanity had endured. And the world celebrated not in destruction, but in quiet, unbroken triumph.